Okay, I'm here with Adam Bradbury again. Now, Adam is a passer hitter, or as he sometimes says, a left side, or as some people say, a swing hitter, or uh, me as a middle, I'd say the guy who passes so he can hit rather than so I can hit, as it might be. I had to get that one in early. The position, I think, that as youngsters, I think most people think that's what volleyball is.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the way we typically kind of teach things. But I wanted to spend a little bit of time with you just touching on your kind of key pointers or keys, as American coaches would tend to talk about in terms of being a passer. But also, you're a very powerful hitter, so I'm kind of keen to explore how you generate power, particularly in your attacks. So what's a good pass? What's a good passer?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes with the job as a left side is your job's to pass. Like, that's it. You can't be a good enough hitter to make up being a bad passer unless you're an opposite. And we have a job for that, and it's not a left side. So yeah, if anyone is thinking about playing a left side, learn how to pass. Like Shantz, that was one of his killers. He's massive, huge, and it was one of my killers. I was pretty athletic and hit hard, but we only both started playing good volleyball when we could be confident in reception, because obviously playing confident is a big part of the game. So yeah, that confidence with passing sets your team off on a level, sets you off on a level. So definitely a good place to start is reception. Mm-hmm. And then what makes a good pass? I've obviously been coached by a range of people playing in different systems, but the best volleyball I played was towards the last season I played. So I'll try to stick to those systems so I'm consistent. But we in that team talk about like situations and levels, or however you want to see it, but there's a range of good passes. So our base level, there's no aces.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the first job of reception unit is, so we said no aces in the seam. Like if you're not sure, that ball's coming off, but we don't get aced in the seam. Even if it's going to be a bad pass, you're one arm in it, you don't get aced in the seam. Now, if I was playing against social volleyball, my goal can't be don't get aced. It should be make this pass perfect. And if you're playing a high level game, if you can't pass well against most of their servers, it don't matter what you're doing, you're not going to win. So that idea of don't get aced, that is not good enough against most of their, maybe one of their servers or someone's hot and we say don't get aced, but that has to be the baseline. And then the rest just work up from there, really. So we talk about, it depends on your team. We were a big athletic team, as most good volleyball teams will be. So then we talked about height. Mm-hmm. If the ball's 5 meters off the net, but it's high, the setter's going to get there with both hands. That means one of our outsides is hitting the ball with full approach. Yeah. And we back ourselves in that situation. Now, obviously, we then just work forward. There's going to be that gray area between flat perfect on the net or height 5 meters off. Okay, there's a range, but we start off with no error. Then we sort setter can get hands on it. Mm-hmm. And then anything in the 3 meter zone is when we start talking good, but still the coaches, they still have that perfect spot is 2.5 setter not taking a step really. So that's stats wise, we'd still have that perfect slot. But yeah, if the setter's got both hands on it, you're doing pretty well. If he's inside the 3 meter line, you can tap yourself on the back and move on to the next job.
I think that's a really interesting place to start the conversation. First things first, don't get beaten. Second thing is guarantee a strong attack. Third thing would be, we know what perfect looks like in terms of accuracy. I tend to think too many people think of your last point as the first point.
Yeah.
I must pass to 2.5. It must be peaking 5 meters up. It must drop into the setter's hands in a jump set position, all those kind of things. And I think it's interesting you go from like here to here to here rather than I'm just going to go here.
And then, obviously this is me talking here, but before this first hand you've said is communication, footwork, being relaxed. We're talking about outcomes, but if you want to learn how to pass, you need to talk about processes first and foremost. Like the outcome does not matter. But it does in a game, obviously. But
Yeah.
as someone trying to learn how to pass, I have those goals in mind. But then, like the biggest one, and I'll talk about this in every single phase of playing. It took me till every coach I've ever had's told it to me, but it takes so long to learn. Is being relaxed.
Yeah.
Just to be relaxed as you're touching the ball.
Okay.
That comes through confidence, but when you get tight, you lose out on all your fine motor controls, right? When you squeeze big muscles, you can't control small things.
Yeah.
And the ball just starts pinging off you. You start getting tight. And when your arms come down, and then we're losing height, right? We talk about arms away from our body.
Yeah.
So if I'm relaxed and big, then I can play controlled. I'm breathing calm. I'm making cool choices. So, yeah. But it's the same with all actions. But that relaxed.
All those things you've just said, I'm now thinking as a coach going, like, gosh, how many times do I remind young players of those kind of things? So I do think.
But then just telling them help, and this is the problem. Yeah. Be relaxed. Don't get stressed. Don't get stressed. It doesn't work. It's so much that you just got to figure out. Yeah. Do you put some whale noises in the back?
But I think some of those things like will come back to being relaxed. But some of those points you've just made, which are, essentially to anticipate, to build your platform, to make sure your platform's out, in, so that you're in control of the platform. Yeah. Some really, really helpful kind of fundamental kind of points. You often see players with like shoulders really shrugged up and they get tense.
I think a big key for young players, and it's not just young players, it's people who aren't very good, in all honesty.
Yeah.
But it's that in volleyball, the ball rebounds from you, right? When you touch the ball, there's nothing you can do. Everything's already been done. And that understanding, people, and that's why you can be relaxed when you touch the ball, because you can't do anything at that point. As you're touching it, everything's done. And that's where you really, it's the same as everything in life, right? Proper preparation prevents poor performance. But if you're not in the right place, just forget about it. It's done. But when you see people passing well, they're relaxed when they're touching it because the ball's in the right spot. Why is the ball in the right spot? Because they tracked it. Yeah. And people are going to float serve. The ball's going to move. So then how do I get myself in a neutral position, ready to anticipate that? And that's where you can truly look comfortable passing. And that's where I think a lot of coaches fall into this trap as well of why you're not there, why you're not there. No. The problem is 2 minutes ago. The problem is he didn't talk to his libero about who's taking seams. So as the ball's coming, he's looking. And now, and those errors come in. Also, a problem as a coach teaching left sides, there's so much I take for granted. If you take a kid, 6, 7-year-old kid, throw a ball to him and say, I want you to stand still when you catch it, they'll be running in circles because they don't know where it's going to land. Yeah. Whereas when you've played volleyball, I see a ball from the other side of the hall, I could close my eyes, move, and probably pass it.
Yeah.
So, again, for coaches, just be cautious when you're telling kids, just stand there. That's actually a very complex skill. So, a few warnings to coaches there because we all like shouting at kids, but it's not always the best option.
Well, it's like peeling back layers of the onion, isn't it? And so, like, my kids now are in year 3 and year 5, so they're 7 and 9 years old. And the stuff I catch myself from doing, but doing probably is more accurate, and trying to help them really understand ball flight, and getting in front of a ball and moving in relation to this other object, and 2 objects meet each other in a space that is as yet unoccupied. They are complex concepts that you can't.
And more important, you can't. And that's the thing. When you talk to this, I started to meet these people when you start playing sport, but this isn't things people have answers for. Like, you could ask the best setters in the world. They said, no, you just put the ball there. Like, there isn't a science to this. No. That obviously is a very strict science to it, but you cannot process it in that way. Yeah. You cannot process the ball's going this fast. You just need to feel it. And that feeling just comes from proper reps, good reps.
Okay.
So, and that, again, is, as a left side man, you need to pass the ball every day.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So when I spoke to Rupert about setting, he talked, he was, you just need reps, but you need intentional reps.
Yeah,
reps where you're aiming for something, but you notice the things that you don't achieve. And it was really, really interesting. And so you've talked about process, you've talked about reps, you've talked about almost like sequencing of things so you're prepared to play. So you're in this passing unit, I'm the server at the other end. I jump float, it doesn't really float very often, sometimes I get it right. But so what are you looking at? Oh no, hang on. No, you said it's about what you've agreed before I've even got the ball in my hand.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
About a conversation with the other passers first, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So our unit, we know, well, we don't even need to talk.
Yeah.
Like, we know where the server's going to be, what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And most servers serve a similar style. Even if they move, like, you have video on everyone, so you know a lot about what's going to happen before it happens. But also, there might be 3 or 4 variations, but you'll know all 4.
Yeah.
You'll know from where they are, who's taking what seams. So that is the way we play it. Is if I'm taking left seams, I can put my arms and move my right foot, but I'm not going to move my left foot to the right.
Yeah.
Everything else the other way is mine, though. So that's how we work. And also, we used to play with a bit of the other guy's not going to help you.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, just so you, like, if that ball's on that side of you, the other guy's not going to help, and that goes down as your error. But it's clear then. Like,
yeah.
It's not. It's we all want the best for the team. This way, it's clear. That's his ball.
Yeah.
So yeah, from where you approached, I know what zone's mine. Looking at you, talking to the boys. I love talking when I'm playing. It means if you're talking about what's happening, you're zoned in. You're watching. You know your mate's watching you. You know you and him have open communication channels. Zoned into the ball, and then as that comes, the first thing is obviously where he's looking, what's going on. But I'm talking as he's going to approach, being relaxed and just taking in stuff, making sure just I'm ready for the opportunities that come. And then it's track, height, and then move. It becomes a motion of, we used to play, and I used to like this. If the ball's coming on your right hand side, you play on your right hip.
Yeah.
The ball's coming on your left hand side, you play on your left hip. Now this was about, some people don't like it, but I do. But small. If you aim small, miss small. Now some setters hate that stuff. Like, they hate setting people who need the perfect ball. They want to set the guy who can give anything, but they normally give it perfect when they can be free. Yeah. But it's about having a clear process. That was, for me, is when I understand, right, the ball's coming here, these are the actions I need to do. And then, yeah, play high and just have your little mantras. Like, it'd be, left seams, if it comes here, them little reminders, then for me, it's like pass high. That just relax, pass high, arms out, these kind of words.
Yeah, but ultimately, so the talk isn't sentences, the talk is key cues.
Yeah, for sure.
You narrow down into 1 word or 2 words.
Yeah, that 1 word is nonsense, but it means means like the world. Yeah.
Yeah. So it might be a number followed by left, followed by float, or whatever. Yeah. And that's it. And that's all it needs to be, because you've tuned in together. And I think that's something that's really important to understand is, I've coached for a number of years this strange mix of kids and men's Super League teams. A horrendous mix, to be honest. And if there's too much talk in full sentences, which is like a conversation, you're knackered. It's not communication in that unit is not a conversation, is it? It's a statement and agreement.
Yeah, and that's where there's differences that come is in games. There's no discussion. The only discussion can be after, but it's not shall we do this, shall we do this. Like if you've got a good game plan, it's this. Yeah. This is the situation. We know what we're going to do to execute. And we're just going to do it. It's confirming. It's like we used to talk in Sweden about the eye contact, like looking in each other's eyes, because we don't need to be better or worse. We need to play our game, and we all need to be here for it. Yeah. If we're here for this game, then that's done. And that's essentially what the communication is when you play a half decent level, the amount of information you need to be actioning is intense. For every rotation, serve or receive, for each lineup, for for each of those, you need to know where I'm blocking, if the ball's good, if it's off, if it's trans. So you can't remember that all yourself, and maybe you'll remember your teammates, but then that's when your job isn't to teach them or explain. It's, we need to be on these things. I've remembered this, you've remembered this. Okay, we're all tuned in, go. So yeah, that language is a strange beast.
And that's the limit. What you've just described there is a key reason why there's a limitation if you only train once a week or twice a week or 3 times a week, because you just haven't got the opportunity to layer those things in. Therefore, you anchor back to your, for me, you'd anchor back to your first point, which is, well, how can I guarantee we don't get aced? You know, and you build up from there.
You've got to work the way up them steps.
Absolutely.
There's the buy-in, the cash required to go to that. And unfortunately in sport it is cash, but you know, normally personally it's the commitment, but it's to get to that next step. And when you watch games and that team, they almost won, but the other team they grinded it out in 5. Good teams always seem to grind it out in 5. They rarely, because they've got that depth, they've got the stuff.
It's the consistency, isn't it? And I think one thing that's really interesting is, you know, in any, gosh, if you just focused on your serve reception game, you've got 6 opposition servers plus their bench, but 6 opposition servers. They should all at least have 3 decent variations in what they do. And what you're basically saying is you need to know them all. You need to know at least 18, but probably more like 30 variations that are going on. You've got to communicate that within 2 or 3 words.
But then you've got what rotation you're in for each server. And then you've got which other players are in. You've got 2 liberos, so who's in. One of them will like to take more than the other. The other one talks more. Which left side's next to you? How is he passing? If he's passing well, we shift more. If he's passing bad, he bails on everything, so the libero is going to bail on you. So, and then which middle's in? This middle takes the ball off the net. This middle doesn't. Which opposite's in? He'll take this. But at the same time, some of that just doesn't process. Some of that just becomes, I'm doing my job. Not selfishly, but you have the ownership of, as a receiver, and it's same as anything, like, there's no one else's fault that ball. It's mine. Like, if a middle doesn't take it, never expect a middle to do anything, and you'll be probably still disappointed. It's my mistake. You just have to be, and that's how you get out of those situations of, instead of worrying about this server or that server, pass the ball. And that we can talk about all these small processes, but then again, when you get to high level, someone will just tell you, just do your job. The ball needs to go to the setter.
Well,
go figure it out.
For me, there is a bit of like there's a bit of a curve, isn't there? Because, like, you know, you start, like with basic beginners, you basically go, just get the ball in the air and someone will try and do a second contact. And you progress and it gets a bit more complicated, and we layer it up and we layer it up, and you go through this massive intensive phase. And when you become really good,
you just say pass it.
just pass the ball. It's like, that's what I'm paying you for. So, okay, so we talked about a real good layer of detail on passing there. I'll take you into the mindset of 2 of the groups I'm coaching this season. So I have the dubious pleasure, but it is fun actually. I've not had to do it like this before. I've got the under 13 boys on a Monday, and I've got the under 13 girls on a Friday. So like 12, 13-year-old players this season are featuring heavily, particularly because there's so much little adult volleyball I can get involved. So I'm doing my things to teach them to pass, but what they really want to know is, like, what do I do with my hands? How do I make my arms? So what do you do with your hands? Do you make a fist and wrap round?
So I'm fist and wrap round kind of guy. I know a lot of people are fingers and hold. But again, it's the same answer as also when you start playing, your arms do whatever. I mean, one of the big things I remember learning in Australia was we always play defense like this. And then you watch the high level guys, and they never put their arms together. They just put them out and be big. Why would you make them smaller when you could? The goal isn't to be accurate; it's to get it up to be bigger. So that isn't what you do in reception. Obviously, you want to be very accurate. But yeah, I'm hand and hold. That for me is, I think it's probably what Vic has taught me. And
do you do you push thumbs down to bring your wrists together, or
I'm never worried about them. No, I don't do this one. No, I actively don't do that. It's more just, I know there's sometimes if I don't hold, I've had times when my arms will so I do make sure I try and hold, but it's more about that extension with the elbow. I just squeeze in the elbow, is where it'd be squeezing the elbow, and you don't need to hold hard on their hands, but just the elbows, because that for me, when I'm thinking elbow, that's also thinking up.
Yeah.
So that would be for me just elbows, pushing with that elbow gets your arms away from your body. And this angle, we talk about this all the time, but when you create this angle, chest down, arms out, and elbow, that squeeze, I think you'll be all right. But then at the same time, there's going to be times you bend your elbow to create angles, but that's when we start playing silly games.
We're getting more complicated, aren't we? But yeah, your mathematician brain helps you a lot on
that. I don't think, mate, I wish it was. I think it makes it worse.
And so, again, I'm trying to put my head into the mindset of a 12, 13-year-old beginner.
Yeah.
I always say, do it. I just think the simplest way is make a fist and wrap around. I just think.
Yeah, I agree.
Get your platform out nice and early, space between your arms and your body, squeeze your elbows.
Yeah.
How would you then explain the rebound situation?
So this is really hard for young kids because they're going to have to use their legs.
Yeah.
But then when you're an adult, you don't want to use your legs because the ball's got the speed.
Yeah.
So you're then caught in, and I don't know what the answer is, because do you want to teach kids? You want kids to be able to play volleyball now. Yeah. That's the only way they're going to learn. But also you don't want to undo this hard work down the road. And what we work on and what we were coaching in Dubai was trying to get them this idea of timing. So just getting them to play, but then you don't want kids bouncing before the serve comes.
Yeah.
For me, it'd be using arms for reception, just playing with arms, not legs, because you'd hope there's some power on it. If it's coming over the net, there's going to be some power on it. So I'd just be using arms, just finishing arms.
It's really funny. It's really funny. So this is a great conversation because, you know, I can see me in Madeley and you in Dubai and stuff.
Trying to have the same problem.
But I did some stuff the other week and I instantly thought, oh my God, I've basically ballsed this whole session up because the result that was coming, it was the girls, was a lovely platform. And the ball, they weren't swinging, they weren't jumping up and down, they were doing exactly what I wanted. And the ball would like hit their arm and just drop onto the floor.
Yeah.
The ball wasn't coming at them with anything.
Yeah.
I'd been very purist in the way I'd been instructing them.
Yeah.
And instantly I'd kind of go, oh, this is rubbish. And then I actually looked at what they were doing with their, forget the ball, what are they doing? I was like, they're doing everything I've asked them to do.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's hard because sometimes if you're trying to coach a technique at a younger age, you're not teaching them how to play.
Yeah, yeah, and you want them to enjoy. But I think you always need to finish your arms. That's something Ross talked about that. But that last movement has to be towards the target. Even if you're being brought out to the side, you have to have just some finish. Yeah. And then we talked in Sweden when we were talking about high ball situations and again about the small muscles, small mistakes. But we tried to use our legs as little as possible when setting high balls, when using our arms. It was a coach's philosophy, but I was big against it. I thought big muscles, you don't need to use full power, but it worked. But yeah, I just using arms, just trying to get people. And again, when you watch people who've been playing naturally, like when you watch the French, the Italians, they are very army. They really do get it going. And I think it also helps that people are used to being controlled with their arms. Like you've got a lot of fine motor control with your shoulders. And I only learnt this. So I kind of, again, coming through Australia, I was taught to pass with my hands. Yeah. They aren't a great junior country, but they've got great coaches and they got big people. So they just had, you know, they had Adam White, Sam Walker, who were the other big left side they had? I can't remember him, but you know, Adam White was 2 meters, I think 5, 2 meters 6. And they had a couple of those guys standing on the 3 meter line and just grabbing hold of the ball with these big old hands and just throwing it. And they were like, we can't teach these guys to be amazing at everything, but they're big, so grab it and throw it. And that worked for them. But then, and I went off that motto, but I'm not big enough. Yeah. And then in Sweden, I had a coach who got me into this, trying and be more technical. Like, you know, this works. Like, and you're trying to say you're a good player. You're here being paid money. You better try and be good. And it did. So yeah, you'd be amazed if people try with their arms. It can make a difference, but just get the ball there, you know, just make it work.
Ultimately.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I hear, like, I recognise quite a lot in what we used to do with Craig Hanford as a coach, particularly on the finish. And actually the relaxation stuff you talk about, I instantly think of Keith Brenham wandering around the court. Exactly. You know exactly what I mean.
But I think that idea of Keith's big on timing, as is everyone, but not necessarily the whole body, but that soft to hard, that soft to relaxed, that gives you your power. Just from that arms, that little finish with a ball coming over a net will get it there. So that'd be, for 13-year-olds. And using light balls, you know, and if you look at the Italians, they have so many tools and they do so many exercises that are footwork without balls so that the kids have success and are practicing good things and just cheating ways around it. So, again, we're a little bit behind on the junior development. Not only we have access to it, but we don't have access to experts. But
we have an issue, I think, psychologically in this country that too much youth sport, and you know this is my passion, it's what I do for my job as well. Too much youth sport is mini adult sport.
Yeah.
Why do people in volleyball not use lightweight balls? Because it's not a proper ball.
Yeah. I mean, for us, when I was coaching in Dubai, the under 10 sessions, like sometimes they'd ask for the heavy balls and say, no, this is okay for now. Yeah. Because we don't want kids to be scared of the ball. Yeah. In Italy, they use balloons. In Sweden, at half time, in between the second and third set, no matter what, you have a 10-minute break so you can get food. And again, because it's a business, so they'd have people selling hot dogs to make money for the club. But then they'd have kids on the court playing with balloons. Yeah. That's not volleyball. Ask that kid what they did today.
Yeah.
Ask that kid. They played volleyball.
Those punch ball balloons that make the funny sound and go round, they're ace. Yeah. They're absolutely brilliant. And I did a few years ago. My daughter's in year 5 now. She actually goes to the under 13 session I coach because it's the only one she can get to.
Okay.
But I did some stuff with her at her primary school when she was in year 1. So she was 6. And I had a group of year 1s and year 2s. Because she begged me to do a volleyball club. I used those punch ball balloons. And the things that kids that age can be capable of doing, if you give them the chance, they're amazing.
Yeah. And again, we talk about kids getting around a ball. Like, why not practice that earlier? Yeah. Who cares what it's doing? Like, give them a bin. Like, when I was working, we set challenges like throwing up tennis balls and catching them in bins here to help setting. Yeah. Like, it was fun. Or you carrier bags.
Yeah.
That's not volleyball, but you can have success and you can really work on skills and you can have fun. Yeah. And this is a small sport. You want someone to leave the sports hall having enjoyed volleyball.
Yeah.
And you want them to have done movement and you want them to have been getting better at volleyball. But what actually happened in that gym, that could be anything. And those criteria can still be hit. And I think that's why, like you say, it doesn't have to be mini adults volleyball. If you hit them criteria as a coach, you should be happy. Yeah. And how looking at it in that way can you change your perspective?
I mean, I was really lucky. 13 years ago now, I went out to Canada and attended a big symposium, coaches from all around the world. And one of our guest speakers was the American coach, John Kessel, who's a legendary coach. And I listened to podcasts he speaks in, and he didn't say this when I met him. He did some amazing things in that about using the net as much as you can in training. But in a recent podcast, he said, he listens and smiles about coaches who talk about their careers in terms of what's in the win column and the loss column. And he describes his wins and losses as the wins are the kids who he coaches who play the next season. Mm-hmm. The losses are the ones who quit. And I thought that was really interesting. That kind of chimes for me with what you've just been saying.
Yeah, I mean, when you get Jenks as an S&C coach, he says that the best gym program you'll ever write is the one that someone does. But I think that's a really interesting discussion, is what makes a good coach. But I don't want to argue Jan Kessel, but there's some people who stop playing is the right decision for as well. Yeah. And that's what you can tell that he cares about his kids and not himself. Like that's what he's clearly putting forward. And again, that's what sport's about, right? It's just making an environment where people are there for each other. But
I think you're right there about, if people want to stop, then you should let them stop. And my approach to that was always never to let someone go easily. I'd need to understand why it was.
Make sure they understand, right?
Yeah, like what is it you're going to go and do instead? Well, if it's nothing, then what are you doing? If you're going to go off because you're focusing on rugby or on swimming, or you're a good musician, or you're an actor, or whatever it might be, go for it, because they're really good things to do. But if it's because you just can't be bothered, well, I would suggest you try and find another hobby then in that case.
I mean, more importantly, you're not going to pull them to the gym, right? You're not going to pick them up from home. So if your words can change their mind at some point, like they're open to anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Left sides, huh?
That's been a really, really helpful conversation about passing. And
yeah, no problem.
Before we lose you, when we do lose you at some point, although I'm hoping to get a game out of you at one time.
Yeah, at some point, right.
I will absolutely seek to get you to do some kind of passing masterclass when it's all safe to do so. So thanks for your words of wisdom, Adam.
No problems.
Really appreciate it. Cheers, mate.
All right, thanks.